Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA front office show. We've got, unfortunately, some injuries that we got to talk about on today's show. Not ideal. We've got a bunch of other news topics as well. Quick reminder, important time of year, obviously, in the NBA. Make sure you do subscribe to the NBA front office show here on YouTube, as well as the podcast over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to check out the basketball bulletin as well. I've got a new post up there that just published like 20 minutes ago. So go check that out. I'm going to put the link in the description down below. Joining me is Keith Smith. Keith, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Did you build that post off like your tweet that you would put out, like at least part of it, like about? Like, I saw you'd put out a tweet about the playing tournament and how like what
It
happened
actually kind of hurt
it.
a little bit this year. Yeah, I built it was the other way around. I built the tweet off the post. I had already written that section of the basketball bulletin post about how this year, and I thought people actually kind of took it the wrong way. My tweet or post or whatever we're calling the damn thing now over on X. I put out there that this year the play-in tournament hurt more than it helped because of the injuries that we saw and just the way things kind of broke with this, as well as we had not a dud of a trade deadline, but a less active trade deadline in terms of big names than you would typically like to see. And part of that, of course, is it's a ripple effect of the play-in tournament. So I had a lot of people take that to mean play-in tournament equals bad, which is not the case at all. I think the play-in tournament overall is a very, very good thing. I just think it just so happened that some players got injured in games this year, and that hurts overall, and that's the way it goes sometimes. But for this season specifically, I think the play-in tournament actually hurt the NBA more than helped, but overall, it's still a very good thing for the league.
Yeah, and that's more or less where I'm at too. I don't know that I would hate the idea of bringing back the games back qualifier. Like
yes.
There's to some extent like this year, did we really need to give the Bulls and the Hawks a shot at the playoffs when they were like 7 games back of the Heat? I don't know. Like I'm not sure, but it's kind of funny as he often does. I don't know how much you follow Ryan Bernardoni on Twitter. He goes by Danger Cart, but he is he's a Cap guy, but he's also a huge Celtics fan, so kind of right in my wheelhouse. But he often boils things down to very simplistic terms on some of this stuff. And one of the things he said on someone who was like, we didn't need the Heat playing in this play-in tournament and losing Jimmy Butler. And he said, I agree. I also think if you win your conference by more than 13 games, you should get an automatic bye to the finals. And if you finish with a more than a 7-game better record than the next best team, we should just give you the title. And it is kind of funny because we do very much, we start to draw arbitrary lines, right? Sure. Like where is the lines on those things? And it did kind of make me think like, I guess he's not wrong. Like, yeah, this year kind of was a bummer. And it certainly sucks that we had all these guys get hurt. Don't get me wrong. Like that part is absolutely awful. But for the most part, yeah, the in-season tournament's been a huge success. It's helped the regular season. It's helped the end of the regular season. And it's been fun to have these high-pressure games, a couple of extra ones leading into the playoffs.
Yeah, I called it an appetizer to on my post on the basketball bulletin. I called it an appetizer to the playoffs, and that's exactly what it is. And overall, as you said, it's a very good thing. Now, I'll say that the idea that in some way getting a bye to the finals or just getting a chip because your team's so far out in front. I mean, we're not going to go Premier League style here where you just have to be the top seed. And when the problem with that is you're comparing it to something that's never existed, right? You never just give.
And he was being very facetious.
Of course. Of course. Right. But where the lines were drawn prior to the play-in tournament, if we had gone back to the old system, that would have actually benefited the NBA this time around. But that's not to say, again, that the play-in's been bad overall. I think it hurt this year, and there were some exciting games, but overall it's been good. I do agree, though, that I think they were onto something with the bubble, where if your team is far enough below, just let that be it. It shouldn't be something where you fall backward. I mean, look at the Atlanta Hawks fell backwards into a play-in spot. And say you could argue the same thing with the Bulls because they were so far behind in their conference. You shouldn't, just because you were the 9 or 10 seed, automatically get a play-in spot. It should be determined by are you really in the mix and we can make this interesting? Or, which now, I mean, maybe the Bulls are in the mix now because Jimmy Butler's injured, but are you really in the mix, or do you just happen to be the 9 and 10 and the line really gets drawn at the 8 seed where the quality ends in the conference?
Sure. And if we went back through year over year over year, we would find years where prior to the play-in tournament, there would be an 8 seed that was like, what in the world? Like, why?
Sure.
Like, why are they even here? And more often than not, those 8 seeds got blasted in the first round and we're out. And it's just something that has happened in the past. And that's going to be anytime you have a deciding line, you're going to have sometimes very deserving teams miss out, sometimes undeserving teams get in. But yeah, largely, I think it's been pretty good. I batted the idea around with some friends this morning, and a couple of them were like, yeah, but how would you do it? What if the 10th team was 7 games back, then the 9th team was only 6 games back? And I said, so then what I would do is 7's automatically in, and 8 and 9 play for 8. Like, that's, there's ways you can set this up.
Sure.
Now, the TV partners aren't going to love it if all of a sudden it's like, hey, one of those games is gone, and that's the number one reason why they probably will not change anything with this. But in the end, it's perfectly fine. Like you said, this year, bummer, but with that. So let's get into it from last night if you want to. Probably start with with the injuries. Start with Jimmy Butler. Heat lose to the 76ers. The big story, I think, was going to come out of Sixers kind of ground out a win where their stars weren't very good and their role players were awesome. And probably a story going into the weekend would be Joel Embiid did not look good. Like, if you just look at the box score, you'd be like, it was kind of okay, but he wasn't moving well. Did not look good at all. Looked worse than he did at the end of the regular season, which is a little concerning. My guess is if you could get them to be honest, they would tell you if these were just regular season games that meant nothing, he wouldn't play. Like, he'd be still sidelined and recovering. So it is what it is, right? We'll find out with him, where he's at. I think one, important for Philly to win, not have to play Boston in the first round. The other piece of major importance, Embiid now gets a few days off to rest up before opening the series on Saturday. So I think that is also of equal importance for them. That is a good thing. So here we are now. On the flip side, the Heat, Jimmy Butler, it was pretty early on he got hurt. Like, it was clear something had happened. And then what did he go on to play 40 some odd minutes, and like probably 20 some of those were after he got hurt. And now it's come out, well, let's say the reporting came out that it's an MCL issue. His agent is now pushing back and saying, no, we won't know till later today, and all those things. I'm not entirely sure I'm going to buy all that, but that sucks for the Heat.
Yeah, big time. That's a big problem for them. This is, Jimmy Butler is the playoff guy, right? He's the guy. When we think about players who really turn it up for the playoffs, of course we go to playoff Rondo and some of these other guys, right? But Jimmy Butler over the last few years has been the guy where you go, oh man, you don't want to deal with Jimmy Butler in the postseason. And now
all of a sudden starts making 3-pointers that he doesn't even take in the regular season. Yeah, all sorts of stuff.
And the way he limped off the floor, that didn't exactly inspire confidence for him to come back anytime soon. I know the fear right now is already probably a multi-week injury, and that's just terrible to see. Let's face it, the Eastern Conference is not very compelling this year, and the Celtics drawing the Heat in round 1 would have been one of very few things to look forward to in the East. I'm excited about Knicks and Philly. I'm excited to see the Pacers play. After that, the East is just, the tumbleweeds are rolling across the conference right now. So
yeah, I think nationally people aren't as into the Cavs Magic out. I think it's going to be a fun, competitive series. Like I think that'll be a bunch of close games because I think they're just very evenly matched. But I get it. Yeah, that's not one where people are going to oh my God, like gotta cancel all my plans for the weekend. Like I got to be in front of the TV for that one. That's going to be the one a lot of people are going to be like, all right, what do you need me to do family time for this weekend so I can spend, the next 10 hours watching basketball? All right, let's go to Chuck E. Cheese or whatever and get that over with.
Yeah, if it's, not to speak ill of these players. I like the Cavs players. I like the Magic. I will be watching, right? But it's a little bit different when you could go, Jimmy Butler and the Heat are taking on Jason Tatum and the Celtics compared to Franz Wagner, Paulo Banchero versus Darius Garland. Let's go. And I know obviously it would be Donovan Mitchell, but it's just it's not quite the attention grabber that it would be.
The NBA knows it because it's a 1 p.m. Saturday game. Yes. Like that's like the kind of like that has become like the hey, good luck with that one. The NBA also recognizes not probably the best series because it's got a couple games on NBA TV. It's also a piece where you've got that Bucks Pacers game at 5:30 in the afternoon on a Friday that we talked about, which is kind of messy. So you're just I mean, there are certainly series that are compelling and ones that are less so. I'll be honest, I'm not super like enthused over Thunder Pelicans or Thunder Kings. I mean, I'll be watching, but it's a little like, that's the one in the West where
I would be much more into Thunder Kings if Malik Monk was still around.
Yeah,
that would be a lot of fun. Or if Zion was playing, or the other way if the Pelicans, if Zion was playing, that would make that a really interesting series.
Yeah, without a doubt. So now to this, the 76ers win. They made enough plays down the stretch to get that victory. And Butler, it was funny before anything had come out with what the injury was. I had commented to some people. I said, it looks like his knee is locking up. And somebody responded back and said, I bet that's his MCL. That's like a very traditional way it presents, because you could see it was almost like times he couldn't get it loose. And then he would like kind of shake it out during a stoppage of play or after a play. And we're going to find out, where this goes for him. But sounds like probably going to be out for a few weeks, which at this point, that's probably the season. There's no guarantee they'll even get through the Bulls. The Bulls played pretty well last night. The Bulls are perfectly capable of playing well.
Kobe White.
Yeah, Kobe White's been playing great, man. Should get a lot of love for most improved player this year. May even end up winning it. We'll see with that one. But Alex Caruso went down. He had a play where Andre Drummond stepped on his foot, and it wasn't the foot he stepped on that got hurt. It was his other one. As he tried to catch his balance, he rolled his left ankle. So he's now I think he's still being termed as doubtful for tomorrow night's game against the Heat for the final playing spot, or the final playoff spot rather, in the East. But I'm going to guess he's probably not going to go. And that's big because what they would have done is, especially without Butler playing, they would have just put him on Tyler Hero. Said, good luck, figure it out. How are you going to score? Because you don't have a whole lot. Miami has to get Terry Rozier back. Just to have another on-ball creator and another guy who can find something, because that's the thing I'm worried about most for them is the Bulls have a few different ways they can score. DeMar DeRozan, Kobe White, you can throw it to Vooch. Vooch can get you some buckets. I would assume it was capable occasionally of having a big scoring night. I'm worried about Miami finding enough points in this game. I think I'm actually leaning towards the Bulls as the team that may win. And if we remember last year, they had them down and almost out with only a couple minutes left, and we never would have gotten that Heat run that we got if the Bulls had knocked them out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it can still be, losing Caruso, losing Jimmy Butler. Those are really tough blows to both those teams. It'll be like, what do you think happens Friday in both those series?
I think in that one, I just think the Bulls will score a little bit more efficiently than the Heat will. Probably be fairly low scoring. I think Miami's going to try to keep it a low possession game. They will probably, Eric Spoelstra right now, I'm sure he's dreaming up some kind of crazy defense we've never seen before, probably some version of his own that's meant to entice Chicago to shoot a bunch of crappy jump shots that they don't want.
He's going to unleash, like, somehow there's going to be like the flying V from Mighty Ducks is going to somehow be run or something. Like, it'll be something we've never thought. It'll be the annexation to Puerto Rico or something.
Yeah, I love it. Little Giants. That's an underrated movie, man. That's a fun one.
That's a deep cut.
The wolf. What was it? Is it the wolf? Is that what he calls the kid? I can't remember.
Oh yeah.
he's like I give him a milk bath and rub his hamstrings with fresh milk every night or whatever it is. Yeah. So that's an underrated movie. That's a song. What was the Icebox, right?
The Icebox was the girl,
Becky,
right?
The Icebox. Yeah. Yeah. So
it's my niece and she's pissed.
Yep. Oh man, it's great. I love that movie. The kid teaches them to catch the football by thinking of it as toilet paper.
That's right.
So, after throwing him rolls of toilet paper to catch it first. All right. Well, that's been your little Giants.
It's Spike Hammersmith was Spike,
the kid's name. That's what it was. Yeah, I knew it was something like that. So
yeah,
he switches teams to the other team.
That's right.
So yeah. Well, there it is. But that's got to be 30 years old.
Yeah. I'm looking it up right now. 1994. For anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, that may be why. This is a kids sports movie from 1994 that Keith and I are referencing now. So it's a good watch if you guys haven't checked it out. But yeah, if you have no idea what we're talking about, that's why. Why. It's a movie called Little Giants.
Yeah, Little Giants. Good times all around. Back to I don't even know how we got there. Back to basketball. Yeah. And so we were talking about inventing things, the annexation of Puerto Rico. That's right. Yeah, Eric Spoelstra is going to have to coach his butt off for them to win this game. He's going to have to come up with some stuff. You're going to need Hero to shake loose. Bam has to be a much more prevalent scorer in this game. And like I said, you got to get Rozier on the floor if you can and try to get anything out of him. But I'm leaning Bulls. The other one, I would have picked Pelicans if Zion was playing. And I know there's been matchup stuff with these two teams. I think New Orleans has pretty much owned the regular season series, if I remember correctly. I don't know. Ingram doesn't look exactly right. CJ McCollum, we'll see what he does. But I think the Kings are going to get it. I think the Kings are going to, a lot of times in the playoffs, it comes down to, can you create offense? And I think the Kings are going to create offense a little easier, and they'll take this one. So I'm going to go with the Kings, but I don't feel super great about it. I'm not like, oh my gosh, like 100% with the Kings or anything.
Yeah, I agree. No Zion. The Kings right now, they're a 1.5 favorite, which is actually, that's something when the road team is a 1.5 favorite, because usually the home team gets a little bit of an edge. Yeah, I worry about the Pelicans without Zion, and if Brandon Ingram is not right and he does not look right, he had some bursts, but they didn't use him to close the game. Clearly, he can't play full minutes. So, yeah, I think that
the lift on his jumper just doesn't seem to be there. That was a big one. Like he could get the first step, but then couldn't get up for the shot. That part worried me a little bit. So yeah, it's going to be big. I will say this: you touched on it briefly. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. This is the single best chance the Celtics are going to have to get to the finals and be there, hopefully relatively unscathed. Now, anything can happen with an injury or anything like that, but the path has been blown wide open for them. And if they don't get it done this year and at least get to the finals, once you get to the finals, you're playing another good team, and any team can generally win most years. This is not, like you said, this is not the Lakers showing up and being like, all right, which East chumps are we handling with these this year? That you're going to play another good team no matter who it is. But this path has just been blown wide open for them to make it. It was already going to be a major disappointment. I'll even up it to, it'll be a major failure if they do not get through to the finals. And it's the kind of failure where you have to then make big changes. Like you've made some changes this past summer, you're going to have to do something where it is there. Yeah, if a guy goes down in round one, that changes the math. Obviously, everything becomes a whole different story then. But as it stands right now, there's no reason the Celtics shouldn't be through to the finals. And I'm not discounting anybody. Just the reality is they should beat the teams that get put in front of them until June. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. All right, let's get to let's go here. Chris Paul doing his Wolf of Wall Street meme. I'm not leaving. I'm not effing leaving. Chris Paul says he is not retiring
Keith, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. By the way, yesterday's show, we split it up into 3 segments that got a reaction in our comments section.
Universally loved.
It was universally loved. We appreciate all the kind words that were sent our way. We'll address that at the end of the show. I'll mention a little bit about that and kind of the thought process there. But Chris Paul not retiring. We talked about it a little bit yesterday that the Warriors may very well just waive him. Does Chris Paul wind up being that kind of veteran ring chaser, minimum guy this summer?
I think so. I think what happens is he kind of takes stock of, ideally, I think he probably wants to be on the West Coast. That's where his family is. Family's in LA. That's obviously very important to him. But I think he will kind of take stock of who needs a point guard. Where can I go? He is not just going to sign on with somebody and say, take me to the finals. I'll be at the end of the bench. Like, he still wants to play. He's still an effective player, even if he slowed down. So my guess is it's either as a starting point guard, which I put that in quotations, meaning he may start games but only play half the game with another guy in reserve behind him. But I think the other piece with him will be, you will see it kind of get into a spot where he's going to pick his spot where he can play, whether that's for part of the mid-level or the taxpayer mid-level, or maybe it's the minimum if there's somewhere he really, really wants to be, and that's all that team can offer. But I'm guessing you'll have no shortage of teams saying, hey, we'd be happy to have you either as a starter or as a 20, 25 minute a night backup that can play a lot and really help our team. Still, I think you've got probably somewhere in the range of 20 to 25 teams that would be very happy to have Chris Paul in that spot. Some of those teams he's probably not going to be super interested in, because it's like, sure, what would my role here be? There's already other guys, or this team's not good enough. But he's definitely going to have options to continue to play for sure.
This is just off the top of my head. I don't know exactly who they can get, but if the Spurs wind up landing like a legit point guard somehow, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if you get Chris Paul to be the other guard there, not to be like a 2 guard, but to be the other guard in the point guard rotation? And then he gets to throw lobs to Wemby and do all that kind of stuff. That'd be really interesting.
It'd be great. Yeah, 100% in on that. And that's the kind of move you pair that with another smaller upgrade with a veteran guy. It doesn't have to be an all-in move. You don't have to be going crazy this summer. Just go be smart. And all of a sudden it could be, hey, the Spurs are hanging around this race at the trade deadline. Like they're this year's Rockets, and they're playing really, really well. But a lot of that's just me. I believe that much in Wembanyama. Like, I think he's that good, and who knows, maybe by next year he'll be at 25% of whatever he's going to be in his final form after he said he's only at 15. I don't know. We'll see. And, 10% better Wembanyama, that's all NBA, and probably starting to drag a team into the playoffs, almost by himself.
If that is in any way accurate, that he's at 15% right now, if he ever hits 100%, the league is over until he's not at 100% anymore. That's it. Yeah. That's it. The game's over at that point.
I don't even know what sport we'd be playing, because I think you'd have a whole host of guys be like, I'm done. I'm gonna go play water polo instead. Like, I don't need to do this. Like, this is no longer for me. Like, I can imagine 100% Wembanyama in like 5 years and is just dominating. I could see Jokic being like, bye, I'm gonna go race horses now. I've won MVPs and championships. I don't need to do this. See you later. Just imagine.
Guys will go start playing baseball and say, hey, it didn't work for Michael Jordan, but maybe it'll work for me.
Maybe it'll work for me. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
We'll have a bunch of 7-foot soccer players running around.
Just all crosses into the box all day.
There it is.
Yep. Get up, get ahead on it. It's a lot of time.
There it is.
Yep.
I don't even have to get up. Just get on your tiptoes and head it in.
Who would be the best soccer player in today's NBA?
I mean, for the longest time, the answer was Steve Nash, because he kind of was.
Because he actually played. Right.
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know. Like you got to almost kind of eliminate some of the European guys who grew up playing.
Right. And we don't know how exactly the skill sets would translate and all that.
Tyrese
But like
Maxey, could probably be a pretty good soccer player. Like he's just so quick and shifty, and he's got good footwork, and he's just fast with the ball. I could see him being somebody. Darren Fox maybe could be a good one. Lefty too. That always throws people off in soccer when somebody's left-footed.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because you instantly go to like, oh, it was a Kevin Durant, a 7-footer out there. They could get well. I mean, then he would be up over the goal. I mean, there's only height is an advantage in soccer, but only to a certain degree, right? It's not everything in soccer. So it'd be interesting. Yep. Okay. Before we get into any more nonsense.
Man, we are way off track today.
Let's go here. Blake Griffin announced his retirement. Not a surprise, obviously, and a great career. A rough start to his career when he fractured his kneecap. I believe it was a fractured kneecap in a preseason game and lost his entire first season, but wound up having a phenomenal career. And where I've seen most of the conversation jump to, Keith, is he a Hall of Famer? Where do you go with that?
Right on the borderline.
Right?
Had the career like highs. Definitely did. There was never a point where Blake Griffin was like, is he the best player in the league? I don't think anybody ever had that conversation, but there were times when it was Blake Griffin's in the top 5 or 10 players, probably for a few years there. I think the career longevity helps. I think it also helps at the very end of his career. He wasn't just hanging on. Like he was actually playing a role on those Nets and Celtics teams. It wasn't a huge role. He wasn't, a starter most nights or anything, but he did play a role for those teams. As an aside, it's come out since that the Celtics kept that open roster spot almost all year with the hopes that he would come back. They had a standing offer to him whenever you want to come back, and he was very clear, like, I don't want to leave my family. I want to stay here on the West Coast with my family. This is, I'm done, basically. He kind of told them early. But then he did say, he's like, if I was going to play anywhere, it's going to be in Boston. Now, it's easy to say if the Clippers or Lakers had been like, hey, we actually have a spot for you. He might have taken one of those because then he can stay home too. But yeah, I think it's right on the borderline. I think what's also cool with the Blake Griffin story is a really successful reinvention of who he was as a player. This is a guy, when he came in, it was like, all he does is dunk. Like, he can't do anything else. Like, is he ever going to develop any kind of real game? I thought he was always an underrated passer. I thought he was always a pretty good passer. But by the time the end of the Clippers tenure and then his Detroit tenure, when he'd been robbed of a lot of that, overwhelming athleticism, he had become a very good passer and a pretty reliable jump shooter, where it was like, all right, he was ground bound and he reinvented himself there as a defender. He went from being a guy who would challenge guys at the rim and block shots to one of the better positional defenders in the league, where he was always near the top of the charges taken charts because he knew I can't do a whole lot else. And he was still always a pretty good rebounder because he was pretty physical. So I think that's a cool part of the Blake Griffin story, is just how sometimes guys reinvent themselves. Jason Kidd, right, was this blur of a point guard. And then by the end of his career, he finally started doing the things he could never do early, which was hit shots. Like, he became a pretty good shooter. And that, I love things like that as it goes along.
Yeah, seeing guys adapt their games to the reality of their changing bodies, right? Before we start talking, sounding like 7th grade health class here.
It's like, man, did you have to fill in as a health teacher every once in a while? Like,
I did
what
once.
Is happening?
I did. I had to give that talk. It was not fun. It was not comfortable.
What is this episode of the Front Office Show? This thing fell apart quick.
Let me tell you, a weird day.
I have beef today. I have real legit beef. There's absolutely no reason Taylor Swift couldn't have done an early release of the Tortured Poets Department on the Front Office Show channel. No reason why she couldn't have done that.
Tortured Poets?
Tortured Poets Department. That's the new Taylor Swift. Name of it? Comes out tonight at midnight. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, man. That's it. That's the name of it. She could have done a early release at 11 p.m. Eastern on the Front Office Show channel. I'm just a little perturbed that she didn't choose to do that, but that's okay. We'll forgive her this time.
Oh man. Well, I hope you can shake it off, Keith.
It's a cruel summer, man.
Oh no. I'm guessing your that's a Taylor Swift song is Cruel Summer.
Yes, it's an extremely popular one right now. Yeah.
I didn't.
Your daughter's a little too young, so that's,
I was going back to the 80s song Cruel Summer.
Yeah, no, not that one.
Okay. All right, let's jump over here. The Pistons are going to hire a president of basketball operations. What does this mean for the hierarchy in Detroit? Obviously not a season. The season didn't play out the way they wanted it to. You've got questions about the head coach, though. He's got a long-term contract. That doesn't seem like that's going anywhere. What does this mean for their decision-making structure?
I'm not trying to be funny or snarky. It means we don't want Troy Weaver to run things, but we don't want to fire him and pay him not to work here. Like, that's the reality of this. They're bringing in somebody above him. We'll see what he does. Maybe he still gets fired. Maybe we've seen this happen a couple other places, and the guy who was in charge just kind of fades away over the span of a couple years.
Decides he wants to spend more time with his family.
Exactly. Yeah. They become an advisor to the organization, right? Where it is, I'm gonna do that instead of this, and that becomes a whole thing. But that's, to me, what this is they want somebody new in charge of the basketball operations. Now, here's the challenge. One, there's only 30 jobs in the NBA where you have final say over basketball decisions. So they will get somebody. Don't get me wrong when I say this. But it is not super duper attractive to be going out there recruiting people and saying, hey, so we really want you to run our team. Oh, that's awesome. Like, I am super excited. I assume I get to pick my own GM? No, we've got somebody in place. Oh, all right, but I can pick the coach, right? Actually, no. For the next 7 years, we have somebody under contract. So you're going to have to wait that one out a little bit too. That's going to take some of the bigger names off the board because they just wouldn't do it, because they're going to say, I'll just wait for the next job. Like, I don't need to do this. They're going to get somebody, don't get me wrong, but it is a little like, I don't know exactly what you're walking into with this one.
And it's a Pistons team that's, I mean, if you look at the roster, it's still kind of a bit of a mess. Could they be on the upswing? Sure. There's some things you could do. I guess it depends on the person, right? Because for some people that are of the caliber that they want to run an NBA team, they want that clay that they can mold, right? They want a team that they can really make it theirs. And I think there is some opportunity there to do that with Detroit. And they would rather do something like that than have a team where, hey, we've got all these long-term salaries that are locked in. This is what the team is. Go. Don't mess it up, right? There are some guys who would rather have that type of situation, but it's also not like Detroit has, like, has Cade Cunningham taken that leap? Not quite yet. Is there a clear path to where this team's going to hit the next level and then you can take all the praise? Not really. There's probably going to be some better options for that. So it's probably not, as you're saying, it's not the most desirable job out there, but somebody will want it. So
sure.
Somebody's going to want to do that. I mean, if Detroit called me up and said, hey, we want you to make our decisions, okay, sure. Yeah. I'll get a thick quote and I'll go up to Michigan. Well, let's make this happen. Somebody will do this.
I'm with you 100%. Yeah. I mean, they will not have a problem hiring somebody. I just don't think they're going to be able to go pitch the best of the best of come do this, just because of some of those constraints involved that are attached to this. I think some of those guys are going to say, I'd rather not. I'm okay with doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of teams that are on the upswing, the Rockets handed out a number of extensions. What's that looking like?
Yeah, Rafael Stone, who is their chief front office decision maker, and Eli Wittes, who is his right-hand man there in Houston. They both got extended. We don't know the exact details. We've talked about this before. These things can be a little bit hard to track down. Yeah. But I think earned from a standpoint of these guys were at a point, it looked like maybe not going to be there for the rest of this. And now we're at a point where it's we've got some news coming in too that
I just saw it. I don't even know if I want to hit the button for it, but
we won't do the button, but it's but with this, they got things headed in the right direction, right? Now you're headed in a spot where, all right, this makes a lot more sense here, and here you go with this. So I think these are these are good things. This proves when you sometimes you let a team sign some veteran guys and move forward, and off you go. So that's going to be very, very good for them moving forward as they build this out.
Here's I agree with everything you're saying there about the Rockets. The injury update: Jimmy Butler, right MCL sprain. He is out for tomorrow's play-in game. Terry Rozier also out. As you said, the Heat really need him back. He will not be back. They will not have Terry Rozier or Jimmy Butler for tomorrow's game against the Chicago Bulls. Keith, heading into this, I think we both said Hawks, Bulls, whichever team makes it through is just going to get blasted by whoever loses the Miami 76ers game. And now I think that's very much up in the air, given how many injuries the Heat are trying to deal with here.
Yeah, I'm not going to rule the Heat out by any means, but I think the Bulls are going to get them. I just think the Bulls are just enough healthier. And I think without Butler and Rozier, it's going to really, really fall to Tyler Hero and to Bam Adebayo to kind of try to do everything for them. And that's really hard. It's Hero he's a good player, but when you can focus your attention on him, he went 9 of 27 yesterday from the floor. Bam's only scalable to a point. He's not Jokic. You're not going to throw it to him and say, "Hey, let's go. Let's do this." I wouldn't be surprised to see Patty Mills get some run just as somebody who can create a shot off the dribble. And I think Jaime Jaquez is going to have to play a really big game as well for them because they're going to need him to really do some stuff. They're just as a guy who can create some offense off the bounce. But for Miami, it was already they need to win ugly. They need this to be as ugly as it gets. They need to win like 90 to 85 and try to really make this just a rock fight of a game where it's super physical and neither team's getting anything clean and you try to win that way. I think that's their only real chance.
And let's be clear, this is part of the beauty of the play-in is this is a one-game sample. Like anything can happen, right?
Yep.
Anything can happen in one of these games. So, as you said, you can't count out Miami here because there is an unpredictable factor here. Keith and I certainly know this maybe better than most because you saw over on X in the months leading up to the playoffs here, I was putting out a post every single day of what Lakers fans for Lakers Nation would ideally like to see happen in the results. And Keith, every single day, just about, I would have a list of what the best outcomes of games would be. Every single day, I would have people coming in the comments saying, "Oh, well, this one will never happen. This one will never happen. That's never gonna," right?
Yeah.
And it typically, right, most of the time, those things where one team's a favorite or whatever, they tend to win. But sometimes they don't. Most days, at least one of those games where everybody just rolled their eyes and said, "Oh, well, that's never going to happen," an upset would occur. It does happen, and especially in a matchup that is this close. So it's by far not a certainty that Chicago is going to advance. There is this unpredictable factor, but right now, without Butler, without Rozier, I think I actually favor Chicago now that to advance. But again, one game, anything's possible, and that's part of what will make it exciting.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. And like I said, let's see where it goes, with this, but it's this part of it sucks because this is just not how you want to see seasons.
No,
like coming down to is just guys being out. And we've had this over and over, but it's all part of it. I say it all the time. You have to be very, very good to win the NBA championship. You also have to be lucky. You have to get some luck along the way. Either that's you get lucky because you stay healthy. You get lucky because teams in your way get upset or they have injuries or whatever it is. But no team has ever I shouldn't say that because there's been a couple. There were a couple Bulls teams that they just stepped on the floor. It's see you later. We're just better than everybody. I think a couple of those Warriors teams are kind of in that boat too. But for the most part, you have to get a little help along the way. Either fortune smiles on you one way or another, and that's part of it is being good and being a little lucky. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how it works in every sport. Like you just have to, being good is the primary requisite. The second is you got to be you just got to be a little lucky, and that's part of it.
That's that's not the NBA. That's sports. That's just sports in general. It's the way it goes. Okay, before we close things out here for today, I just wanted to acknowledge the people in the comment section yesterday there were a few people that didn't mind that we chopped up yesterday's show. A lot of people were not happy, which that tends to, when you change anything with a show like this, people tend to not be happy. But here's the deal. So, what we were working on there and what we were just trying to find out. Yesterday's show was somewhat unique in that we had 3 very specific topics that carried the majority of the show. And so I thought, hey, if we were ever going to try this, splitting the show up a little bit to post onto YouTube, because with the YouTube algorithm, the way it works, and by the way, so many of you have been absolutely fantastic. You've been so complimentary of the show, and we've heard now for years that we've been doing this. This show should be bigger. You guys should have more you guys should have more viewers, all that sort of stuff. One of the things that matters for YouTube, it's not just how many people watch a video, it's how long do they watch the video for? And specifically, what percentage of the video do they watch? So with that being the case, there is sort of a sweet spot that you try to find between having a video that is long enough to where people watch a lot of it, but also that's not so long that people don't have time to watch the whole thing and then they watch a shorter percentage. Both of those things factor into how many people YouTube actually puts your content in front of. And so finding that sweet spot is going to be a challenge. I've seen some full-length podcasts that their strategy is they chop it up and they'll do 15, 10-minute segments or whatever it is, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that, segments that they'll put out. Others will do what we have done previously, which is just put out the entire show. From my end of things, from an editing side of things, it is much more time consuming to chop it up into 3 bits. And you guys know I do a lot of other stuff for Lakers Nation and everything. So chopping it up all the time is difficult. But it was something that I wanted to try just to see kind of what the response was, just to see, did it make a difference? Did it not? Realistically, it's probably something I'd have to do consistently. I think moving forward, what I'm probably going to do is post the whole show as we have been. And then if there's a particular segment that we think is particularly strong, I might break that out and also post that as its own clip. So I'll probably do both of those things. Like maybe I'll take our conversation on the play-in from this show and put that out there if it breaks nicely. But that was the thought process. The thought process was not, hey, we're going to completely alter the way we present the show and we're making this massive change. We just saw a chance to try something and give it a shot. And once again, we've told you guys over and over, like, hey, don't keep us the best kept secret. We love getting all these compliments on the show. We want to get it in front of more people. And so we're just exploring, different ways to do that. And so that's all that wasn't a permanent shift in the way we do things or anything like that. But I'll say this, I do appreciate getting that many responses and that many people being so passionate about it, because I will take all the, hey, don't do it this way. Far better. That's far better than no one noticing, right? Like crickets, that would not have been good. So I do appreciate all of the responses that we had on the change that we tried for the show yesterday on the YouTube channel. And I just kind of want to explain what our thought process was behind attempting that.
Yeah, I'll add to that too. If we do it in the future and it doesn't work for you, you can always find the full show on whatever podcast provider you listen to. That will come out in full. I appreciated the folks who said, I really like the interplay in between topics. Like that's when you guys get silly. That makes the show a little bit more human and fun. And
talking about
then you'll
giants.
love this show, right? Yeah, there was plenty of that in this one. And so yeah, we're trying different things. This is we try to always be pretty transparent and not just say things to say things here. This is a very difficult business to succeed in and to get seen in. There's a lot of shows out there. That's why so much we appreciate whenever anybody spends time, and it means the world to us when you comment on something that was like 35 minutes into a 45-minute show.
Yeah.
That means you were in there and you were watching and you saw it and you saw it there. And that's that, we love that. We love when you guys get the jokes and the inside jokes that have come out. So all the support y'all have given is huge. The feedback means the world to us too. Like we really do take it into account in the decisions we make and how we want to do things. We've tried some things that haven't worked out so great. Tried some things that have worked out really well. I mean, the Friday shows started as just one Friday we didn't have anything to talk about. We were like, let's just go live and make it a Q&A show. And we did, and it was awesome. And now that's a every week thing. We do that. We have a lot of fun with it. So we're just trying to keep growing and trying new stuff and keep the feedback coming. It doesn't just be polite. Like, that's all we ask is just be reasonable and, share your feedback. But we're happy to listen to all of it. I'll also say too, for anybody who is a podcast only person, I know some people have been like, I think your mic has problems. I think you're right. It's probably time to get a new one. So I'll be working on that here coming up. My goal will be before we really hit our big time in the draft and free agency period, I'll have a new mic and we'll be ready to go. But, all the support and all the feedback and all that, it just means the world to us. We, can't thank you guys enough. Like we just have so much fun. I'll answer one other question too that was asked a handful of times. Our playoff picks will be made tomorrow. We loosely did some of them and, as we did light previews, but we're going to make our actual series picks with the games and all that. We're going to do that live with y'all tomorrow on Front Office Friday. We'll have, some fun with that. We'll see if we fully lock in on the number one seed series, but we're definitely going to do that. So again, thanks guys for everything. That it means the world to us.
And some slight breaking news here to close things out. Woj reporting that Alex Caruso's ankle has the swelling has been reduced, and that's increased optimism he has a chance to play against the Heat. So that maybe they do deploy that Caruso on Tyler Hero strategy, the key that I talked about. All right, everybody. Appreciate you for joining the show here. Again, don't forget to subscribe, turn on those notifications as well. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.